It's a great pleasure to be speaking to Dr. Peter Wuffli here today in the Swiss Ambassador's office. He's kindly ceded us the space for about 20 minutes. Dr. Peter Wuffli was appointed President of the Group Executive Board of UBS AG in December 2001 and was Group CEO of UBS in September 2003. Chairman and CEO of UBS Asset Management, and before that UBS AG Group's Chief Financial Officer. From 1994 to 98 he was the CFO at Swiss Bank Corporation and a member of SBC's Group Executive Board in Basel. Prior to that he was at McKinsey. He's reached the highest ranks that you can reach in the global banking firmament. I think we call them rainmakers, and this is a classic rainmaker, and it's a real pleasure to be speaking to Dr. Peter Wuffli today here in Nairobi at the Swiss Embassy. Thank you, Doctor. Just to introduce everybody to you, McKinsey, CFO of Swiss Bank Corporation, CEO of UBS. I mean, if we're thinking of the pinnacle of investment banking, you reached it, and now here we are in Nairobi. If I can just start at the global level, and somebody who sat in the cockpit of one of the biggest banks in the world, how would you describe the situation today?
Well, if you look at the economics of the world, I see two perspectives. One is the corporate perspective, where you see lots of good growth momentum, you see lots of ambitious strategies, you see good sentiment, good confidence, but you see disruption. You see a lot of impact of technology. What people have talked about many years ago, now it's here on a daily basis. So when in my role as chairman of Partners Group, when we screen investments, one of the due diligence points is always look at what could disrupt this business, not in 20 years, but in 5 years because of technology.
Partners Group, of course, would you just briefly tell us what it is?
Partners Group is a leading global private markets investment management company. It's based in Zug. It manages close to $80 billion in assets under management, and it is the second most valuable listed private markets company with $18 billion in market capitalization.
Talking about what you were saying, which is disruption, and I think what you're saying is the velocity of disruption today, right? There's so much changing. Just give us, you know, when you say that, you know, people talk about disruption. Are we talking purely digital? Are we talking? What exactly are you looking at when you're
Technology is a big part, but also geographic strategy is a big part. I think. Also the kind of social aspect influencing strategies, influencing leadership is becoming mainstream. 10, 15 years ago, I think people were right to say a lot of the social responsibility was more talk than action. It was more a matter of the corporate PR than of strategy. And today you see a lot of large corporations that have made it their mission to essentially justify their strategies not only from a financial point of view, but also from a social point of view. When you look at companies like Nestle, like Unilever, they have made the social purpose a key cornerstone of their strategy, and that is something new.
And you know, as a businessman, as a banker, what weight are people giving? I mean, you know, is the financial success still paramount? You can't indulge in social impact unless you're financially sound, or do you see it as a combination? And how would you describe that interrelationship?
I see it as an ongoing transformation of capitalism. And when the great financial crisis happened, there was a lot of talk about new capitalism, and people did not really know what it is. But the fact is, even though we might not exactly grasp what it is, the fact is it's happening on a daily basis. And it's driven by, first and foremost, the clients. Customers today demand ethical products. And if a company cannot prove that the products are ethical, for example, biological grown in terms of food and agriculture, or delivery chains, supply chains without child labor for other equipment, the companies are in trouble. So it's certainly the customers, and I think the second most important group is talented people. Talented people want to work with a organization that delivers society, purpose for society, that delivers also societal good. We see it in our foundation, Elea Foundation for Ethics in Globalization, which is a philanthropic impact investor, that we get CVs from people who could do other things. They could have great corporate careers, but they want to work with a philanthropic impact investor because they want to contribute to society, to keeping society in balance and essentially help globalization continue and provide benefits.
Peter, this is the second time we've met in Nairobi, and I think you come here reasonably frequently. Tell us a little bit about what the foundation, what you are doing, the types of investments that are exciting you, and what exactly is your mandate. What are you trying to do?
The mission of Elea Foundation is to fight absolute poverty with entrepreneurial means. And absolute poverty means $2 and less daily income. And we are looking for creative business plans that have potential for scalability at a stage where they are post the kind of startup excitement, but where they are still quite far away from a commercial viability as an impact investment with return potential. So we invest into companies, for example, that help, like in one of the investments here, that help smallholder farmers improve productivities. It's called iCow. It's an SMS-based service to essentially provide very practical advice to small farmers with 1 to 2 cows on how they could improve their farms so that the cows give more than 5 liters per year and that they have more than 1 calf live born than every 4 to 5 years. That's one investment.
This is the iconic Sukahumbu, I think.
Exactly,
about,
absolutely.
Right? Is it scalable?
Yes, we have found her when she had 500 farmers on her platform.
And today?
And today she has over 60,000 paying farmers and many, many more who are on the data, who deliver data. And she has now expanded into Tanzania and Ethiopia. And yes, we are absolutely sure it is scalable. It is being scaled at the moment. And technology and the cooperation with Safaricom is a big element of it.
And I was going to ask you that. I mean, that seems predicated on the mobile phone and the ability to connect with people.
Absolutely. And this is a feature we see in many of our projects, that technology, particularly mobile phone and Mpesa in Kenya, is an enabler for a lot of social enterprise to thrive. So another example we have is a younger firm called Copia, which was created 4 years ago with the vision to essentially be Amazon plus FedEx, meaning a catalog-driven business for household goods, for affordable goods, for everyday household food, construction material and other household equipment at market prices. And they have built now a network of 3,000 agents around Nairobi in the rural areas with 2 hours, within 2 hours driving distance from Nairobi. They have 400 people. They have built a sophisticated network of trucks, logistics, so that they can deliver these goods within 2 days, most of the goods within 2 days. It's a thriving business. It's growing high double-digit numbers annually, and it's again enabled by technology.
And yes, last night you were also talking about a coffee business you'd invested in Ethiopia, and there was one other business, I think, which was an online. Do you want to just tell us about those two?
One is called Coffee Circle. It's actually a German startup based in Berlin, but it's based on specialty coffee in Ethiopia. There were 2 German consultants who actually created that business, delivering premium specialty coffee to German and Swiss and other European households, paying good prices and returning €1 a kilo of every coffee sold into projects of the farmers, so that farmers can get training, they can realize social projects, they can get their infrastructure right. And the other one is Angaza Design. It's, I guess, one of the investments we're most proud of. It's a Silicon Valley social entrepreneur. She just got a very highly recognized prize from Elea Foundation as one of those scalable examples. It's a pay-as-you-go technology, a chip which is essentially embedded in products such as solar lamps or pumps or other durable goods that poor households cannot afford. And because of that chip, it's connected with data to mobile phones and mobile money. They can release the service of that, for example, solar lamp light for a few hours and pay a few shillings. And through that, they don't have to go through the process of saving, because the fact is, in absolute poverty, people cannot build savings, because whenever they build $20, $30, $40, there is so much demand from accidents, from relatives, from children, from people with appetite for money, that they just never save the cash. And that pay-as-you-go model is hugely scalable.
It's a micropayment.
It's a micropayment system, and it's now active in 20 countries, incredibly scalable. She just raised a double-digit million number in capital on Silicon Valley, and it will be break even soon, and is hugely successful.
So I can see the theme is to make as big as an impact as possible. But from what you're describing, these are successful businesses that are scalable. I mean, if it's working within Nairobi, surely, you can take it to other capital cities. Is that what excites you?
That's our mission. I think we are happy when we have gone through the period, which is often called by venture capitalists a valley of death, which is after the initial excitement, when the real work starts, when the risks come forward, when the strategy has to be fine-tuned, when there is a lot of need for advice in terms of strategy, in terms of leadership, in terms of organization building, until these companies develop a sense of maturity, which makes impact funds that have bigger tickets to write than we have as a philanthropic impact investors.
What size
attractive.
are you writing? What ticket size are you writing?
Our investment is $300,000 to $500,000 US. And an impact fund, in order to be viable for investors in terms of returning the capital and paying some return on top of it, needs to be at the minimum $5 to $7 million US. So it needs to be tenfold of what we do. And we have 10 professionals. We put a lot of effort into sourcing our investments. We look at 150 to 200 proposals per year, and we only make 2 to 3 investments. So huge effort. We also do a lot of effort into due diligence and then into helping the companies realize their potential. So we sit on boards, we help on projects, we mentor CEOs, we help with business planning, and all this is done in a way that is philanthropic and could not be kind of commercialized at that stage.
It's quite a high-touch model, right, for that size of investment.
And that's our experience. I mean, social entrepreneurship is a really, really hard work. And social entrepreneurs are among the most fascinating personalities I've met in my life. They are much more interesting than bankers, to be very honest. But they also need a lot of support. I mean, usually they haven't had formal training, they haven't had leadership development courses, they haven't had the kind of experience of, for example, trusting other people and delegating tasks to them. They tend to do things on their own. They're not used to deal with capital. So in a nutshell, what we try to do with Elea is to combine entrepreneurship and capital, and out of that combination create impact and innovation. This is in a short formula what we do.
Can I now jump to another role that you're playing, which of course is at one of the top 5 business schools in the world? This is IMD. What are you doing there exactly? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
I have been on the board of IMD for almost a quarter of a century now. It's a business school based in Lausanne. It's for me one of those incredibly important vehicles to build bridges and make globalization work. We have 8,000 executives from 100 countries coming to the campus of Lausanne every year. So it's a meeting place for executives all over the world, and we are specialized in executive education. So we do have graduate programs, but the majority of what we do is customized programs and open programs. And what excites me is leadership. And this is maybe one of my the topics I'm passionate about. I've published a book called Inclusive Leadership, because I'm absolutely convinced that globalization will only work and will only be somewhat peaceful if societies kind of adopt inclusive leadership principles. And this is essentially individuals at all levels. That can be in a slum in Kibera, and it can be at the office of a head of state. I think at all levels people need to take their life in their own hand, develop an ethical view on leadership, be responsible, have high integrity, have identity, have authenticity. And I think only if we have inclusive leaders who cut across the business, government and civil society silos, globalization will work.
You had some very strong views on corruption. You're very close to the people in Singapore. You know that there is this, it's ubiquitous, but everyone compares Singapore to Africa at the time of independence, and you look at how far Singapore came. In your view, what's the missing ingredient to get Africa motoring in the way that the Asian countries, the Mekong Delta, you know, you saw that phenomenal growth? Do we have the potential first to do that? And secondly, from a leadership point of view and from an ethical point of view, what do we need?
Well, I'm excited, having spent now a week in Kenya. I'm excited about the potential. I see lots of entrepreneurship in the grassroots. I see lots of people who are very creative and ambitious on one hand, who want to be entrepreneurially active and who want to collaborate. And I do think that it's important to get the kind of legal framework, the regulatory framework, the corporate governance right. And since you mentioned Singapore, I'm an advisor of the international advisory panel to the central bank, and I have always been impressed how Singapore focused on the quality and the professionalism and the ethics of the civil servant sector, and I think that's at the heart of it. So obviously political stability is number one. I think if you don't have political stability, then you can forget about investments. We were very nervous about what happened in Kenya last fall.
You were,
and we were, as many others, and we were very relieved that apparently Kenya, on one hand, has learned from the 2007-2008 issues, and I do think it also has to do with economic progress. Many shop owners, for example, today have inventories that they own that are no longer loaned. And if you have an inventory as a shop owner, you will think 3 times before you kind of agree to riot, right?
Yes.
You are on the vulnerable side. So, and I think because more people have more to lose and you have more middle class and lower middle classes, that helps stability. And I think the second thing is corruption. And there it's about rule of law, it's about property rights. And I do think Kenya would be well advised after having kind of well survived the issues of last fall to now attack corruption. And I think corruption has to be attacked at all levels. There have to be visible statements also at very high levels that corruption is not acceptable. And it's one of the areas where there are countries who have shown the way. It's not, I mean, Georgia, for example, is an example of a country, and there are other countries in Eastern Europe. I mean, China is an example of a very rigorous approach. I think I would recommend states, since we are sitting here in an ambassador's office, I would recommend states to put together a best practice manual on how corruption can be fought. And it's a combination of political will, skill and professionalism, and technology. I give you an example. We have, it's notorious that the truck industry in Kenya is difficult, because obviously when you load something on a truck and you get the truck driver to drive somewhere, you want to be sure that at the end you have what you loaded on the truck. In this business that I mentioned, Copia, there is a straight-through processing through technology where data is entered once, and afterwards the goods are scanned, they are sealed, they know exactly which merchandise goes on which truck, on which route. They observe the truck through GPS. They look when the truck kind of stops at the locality it shouldn't stop for an unusual time, and they call the driver and ask, what is he doing? Why is he stopping? From that, the leakage has gone from 2% to less than 1%.
That's an extraordinary number in the context of Kenya.
Exactly.
Yes.
And this is, I think, technology helps a lot. I mean, electronic money, Mpesa money helps a lot to fight corruption. And I think states would be well advised to really take this serious, because without rule of law, without property rights, without visible fight against corruption, there is no investment.
2 last questions. So obviously, you know, you're at the vanguard of this Swiss engagement with Africa, and you're sort of creating a new pathway, and we can clearly see that. What would you like to see Switzerland doing in Africa today? Is it a commercial relationship? Is that what you want to see, or is it throwing loads of aid at Africa? What's your vision if you were sitting in the Swiss government? What would you be looking to do? It's
certainly not aid.
Yes.
I do think aid is good for humanitarian crisis. It's good for misery, for unexpected kind of ill fortunes, but it's not good for building sustainable wealth. For that, you need business solutions. And right now, Africa has a big opportunity in my book, and particularly also Kenya, because there are lots of institutional investors looking at impact investment opportunities. Many institutional investors are put under pressure by their boards, by their governance, to raise the level of investments that are addressing specifically sustainable development goals as they have been defined by the UN. And there are an increasing number of funds out there. Partners Group Investment, Impact Investments is one fund that is out there that are looking for investments. And that is, in my view, the most promising short-term view, how we can mobilize capital for Kenya, always under the condition of what I said before, that there is political stability, that there is rule of law, and there are property rights secured.
My final question, because I know you're on a tight schedule, is what is your favorite opera? Because I see from here that you have been on the board of, is it the Zürich Opera House, for many years.
This is a tough question, because the Zürich Opera House is producing so many excellent operas, but I would probably, if I were pressed, I would probably say Don Carlo by Verdi.
My favorite is Aida by Verdi as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, that's another one that is close.
Yes. Dr. Peter Wuffli, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure.